Welcome to Lead Your Life, the podcast for people who are seeking harmony in business and in life. My name is Debbie Heiser, and I'm an inner mastery and business mindset coach and the chief igniter here at the Lit Up Life. I feel an urgency to help people let go of past messaging so that they can make a lot of money doing what they love without sacrificing what they value most. Welcome. We're glad you're here.
Straight from the corners of my mind is where I find my sanity. It's a place, another land.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Lead Your Life with Debbie Heiser. I am with you today. My name is Debbie Heiser. You heard all the stuff at the beginning of this, so I won't go into it. But I want to talk today about vision and what vision leads to, because when we think about our true identity, which I'm going to talk about here in the next couple of months, but when we know who we are, we can then create a vision. And even if you don't know who you are, start to create that vision. And looking out 3 years from now, what do you want your life to look like? And hopefully some of you have been working on that. It's towards the beginning of the year. If you're working with me, that's something that we do together, and you do as well on your own. But we take a look at and say, what is it that I want my life to look like? And not just in a business capacity, whether that be career or business, not just in financial, but we look at what does your spiritual life look like, regardless of what your belief system is, but what does that spiritual life look like? What does relationship look like to you in 3 years, in 5 years, and 10 years? So start out, and if you struggle with 3 years from now, start out with 1 year. So looking at relationships, we also look at physical health. You know, as entrepreneurs, as people, we are only good as we are physically. And whether that means taking care of ourselves from an activity perspective, what we put in our mouth matters more and more. I've been doing a lot of research on physical health and how that impacts, like what we eat, how that impacts our body, our microbiome, that impacts then the brain. And I've been doing some little tests here or there. It was interesting. I had pasta last night. We made homemade pasta and with a friend, and I haven't had gluten in a while. And it's interesting how I woke up this morning and I was forgetting things and all sorts of weird things were happening. And I thought, oh, I'm going to take note of that, because then if I decide to eat gluten the next time and have the same results, then I can see what's happening with what I'm putting into my mouth. So the physical piece is important. So we've got spiritual, we've got physical. It's important to take a look at your emotional health. Are we processing emotions, or are you, or am I processing emotions in a healthy way, right? Like, for instance, a lot of us learn to hold on to anger and we don't express those things because we've either seen anger handled inappropriately where it hurts someone else or hurts something else, or we never saw our parents really have anger. So looking at those emotions and how we're processing those. Then also intellectually, what are we doing to stimulate and grow our mind? So not the emotion part of it too is around how are we growing our heart? How are we growing our mind? The spiritual is about that will, that kind of deep knowing that you have. For me, it's the Holy Spirit. For you, it might be the universe, whatever that is, right? So we've got spiritual, we've got physical, we've got emotional health, intellectual health. We also look at finances. And finances are about helping you achieve financial freedom. And then we take a look at business. Also, how are we contributing to the communities that we're part of? It may or may not be exactly where you live. It might be groups of people that you're involved with, whatever that looks like. We also then go into environment. I've been noticing the more and more I'm decluttering, the more reaction I'm having to clutter come into my life. And so that's been a really interesting growth for me, and an awareness of things. I talked about contributions to community, environment. There's a couple of others, but it's really holistically looking at those things. Now, why is that important? And why is it important, before I make a vision in each one of those things, to think about an overarching vision, right? Like, I start people out with the individual because it leads to, and I back engineer it basically into the bigger vision. Some people prefer to start with the bigger vision. You know, I know that I have a big vision for the company that I have, the Lit Up Life. and making a huge impact in the world. However, why it's so important that I have that vision for the company and I have created a vivid vision that I've shared with my team. They're bought in, we're like moving it forward and it's growing and going towards that direction. It's important that I personally also figure out those other avenues because I may be building this big business, but if it's against or counterintuitive to what the rest of my life shows as what I'm wanting, there's going to be conflict. There's going to be an issue, right? So working on both of those is important. If you own a business or you have a career and you want to identify where you want to go in your career, not always is it up. You know, we tend to in corporate America, I spent 20 years there, think that everybody wants to be president and CEO of the company. That's not the case. I don't even want to be the CEO of my own company once it gets big enough. So when you look at that, it's important to mirror and map those two together so that you're not being counterproductive, because that can also stop you from achieving, being, and doing either one of those things. Let's face it, sometimes as an entrepreneur and a business leader, we need some guidance, support, and community. So we here at The Lit Up Life have 3 ways that you can work with us in order to achieve that. As a private client, we work together to quantum leap your business by discovering strategies to help you move past what's holding you back and allow you to identify what you want your life to look like. The result, your business becomes the conduit to the lifestyle, success, and impact that you intend. Now, I'm a huge believer in the power of collaboration. So in our community masterminds, you can join in with other high vibrational business owners who want to level up, increase impact, and financial gain, all with a tribe of other women to support and encourage you on your journey. Currently, we're accepting application for this women's mastermind group, which is a year-long program for women in business who are ready for that next level of success. We create deep personal awareness in a safe and supportive space where you can experience growth with others who are on that same path. Through weekly sessions with our program coaches, teachings that go beyond the buzzwords, and immersive retreats in places like Mexico, the Dominican Republic, or Belize, we work together to create long-term abundance and lasting impact in your life and business. The last and final way to get involved with us is our group coaching programs. They provide the opportunity for teaching, masterminding, and feeling like you aren't alone on this ride. Come join us. So vision is super important. And part of why I look at the business part of it is as we're growing and as we're adding people to the team and as we're adding more clients, it's important that we keep our eye on the ball and not just this vivid vision of having, a multi-million dollar business that's impacting thousands of lives across the globe. That's a big kind of mission statement, but also having the vision of how do we want to do that? I have strategies about exceeding our gross and net revenue expectations. And that includes how do we attract people? Part of that's this podcast, with marketing, also our budgeting. I have having next level service for the clients, not only current clients, but future clients, so that experience that people have. And the third strategy is about setting up the company for growth, and that's technology and team. There's more to it. I'm just giving you a really high level overview, but having that vision in the company then is somewhat of a compass, because I have the values that our company stands for, and everyone that works there or contracts with me is knowledgeable of that and buys into those values. So there's a congruency or an alignment with that. And that's where I'm talking about then too, having this vivid vision for what you want in the rest of your life. Now, there are numerous tools out there. I've grabbed these different sections from numerous different places. Some of them were my mentors. Others were from the Law of Abundance planner that's out there. Some of it was from a passion planner. I recently started using the Soul Planner, and they have quite a few things in there too that are slightly different names than what I have placed on them. But pick what works for you as far as the categories. But I do suggest that it talk about relationship and it talk about the baseline pieces, meaning the spiritual, the physical, emotional, and intellectual health. Those 4 things are really solid foundations as long as you feel like you're setting those up. And what's interesting is I know for me, sometimes I can be so focused on the business or so focused on relationship that I stop taking care of my own physical health. That's not an alignment either. So it's important to have that vision, not only to know what direction you want to head, but to check it, make sure it matches your values, make sure it matches and isn't being counterproductive to another area of your life. As an example, I, years ago used to be like, I'm going to work out 3 times a week. I'm going to do these things. Well, I realized that doesn't necessarily work for me. I grew up in a family where exercise was considered a necessary evil. So when I talk about exercise, that's not really fun for me. So I started to think about what are some solutions that I can change that mindset and that belief that I have. Well, ski season hit. It's not the best snow right now. I'm recording this on January 8th. You're going to hear this towards the middle of January, but I went up anyway. And I thought, you know what? I just did more physical activity than I would have had I not gone skiing. I bought a treadmill. I looked down because for those of you watching the video, next to me at my stand-up desk is a treadmill that there are certain calls that I can actually walk slowly on, and or if I'm watching something to learn, I can actually step it up and actually walk as if I'm walking outdoors. It's interesting. I think it's REI that always says there's no bad weather, just bad clothing. So part of that too is making sure that I always keep a pair of tennis shoes here, that I'm dressing appropriately, and part of that is spaciousness. I'm dressing appropriately because I've created space to walk to the post office, to walk to the bank, to do those types of things. In the summer, I tend to ride my bike a lot. So it's about creating activity versus exercise. So I kind of went off on that tangent because I want you to really think about the words. The linguistic environment really matters and can change the way you think about things, meaning that I've talked about brain science before, but that belief really was created somewhere with some messages. And that belief is what creates the action and the habits that we have. So dig into those things, because having that vision, both personally and what that looks like for you, and if you own your own business, or part of that is career, part of that wheel is career or business. I just blew it out further so that the whole team could buy into it. And we have our own tasks and actions that we're doing. But when you do that, it helps you then align, because I hear people all the time talk about balance. Well, if you've listened for any amount of time, you've heard me say this before. I think balance is bullshit. And the reason I say that is it feels like a setup for failure, because it feels like everything should weigh out equally. And I don't know about you, but sometimes when I've been in that state, it's almost like, okay, when is the shit going to hit the fan? Right now, I'm not saying from a mindset that you can't be in flow. Right. My word for this year, I think I shared on a previous podcast, is integration. How do I integrate physical activity into my day-to-day routine so that it's just as easy for me to get up and do something or go walk to the post office as it is to brush my teeth in the morning? So when we think about that, though, it's more about harmony. Do you feel at ease with your vision? Is your vision taking you where you want to go? If you're struggling, you're hitting your head against the wall, that just simply means you've got something in your brain that has a belief tied around it. And it's about unwinding that belief. And that's a big piece, honestly, of what I do. Because in order for a lot of times entrepreneurs to make money, they have to let go of stories and beliefs to allow that money to come in. So when you think about vision, and let me back up too, because an important key component to this vision is sometimes people will get overwhelmed because they're thinking about vision and thinking, oh my gosh, I have to have every step figured out to reach this vision. You do not. You need to know enough about the first step, but here's the key too. Sometimes the first step is displayed to us and we choose not to see it. And that's okay. Don't beat yourself up. Just look with the lens of curiosity and be open to, when that comes forward, to doing whatever it is that you do. I pray, I check in with my gut. I don't sit on it for very long. I make very quick decisions these days, but I know, because I've used these tools long enough to know when it hits in my body. I listen to my body. I listen to my intuition. I listen to my heart, and I listen to my head. And if any one of those is off, and I can tell you every single time that I've had a feeling about something, and I just experienced something this weekend around it. Every time I have a feeling about it and I choose to go ahead with something, later it comes back and it's like, I knew this, right? Like, and I don't do that as a beat myself up, but more so take that into my evidence bank so that when I have that feeling again, I trust my gut. So even though I talk about this stuff, it's a practice for me every day too. So, and watch the words that you say to yourself. So as you go through this, creating that vision for yourself personally, creating it for your business or career. If you are an entrepreneur, it's important to have a pretty vivid vision of what you want. And I don't mean like every step, again, figured out. It's about what's the culture of your company? What does your team look like? Or are you going to remain a solopreneur? What does it look like for you to make money? All of those kinds of things. What's your vibe? If you own a brick and mortar, what's the vibe somebody gets when they walk in the door? If it's digital and it's all online, what kind of impression are people getting from your online presence? So it goes further and deeper into that. And that vision, again, sets you as a compass to moving forward. Now, it's interesting because it will create harmony because it allows you to step back and say, this is a definite yes. It allows you to employ the law of sacrifice, that this is a definite yes. This one over here, I'm not feeling as a definite yes. So you can say, no, not at this time, or thank you for asking, but it just doesn't work for me right now. And that feels a lot different than coming back to someone and saying, no, I can't do this, and adding a lot of excuses or rhetoric around why you don't want to do it. So give that some thought because it leads into this idea of harmony, which a lot of people that I talk to, they just want freedom. They want peace. They want happiness. Part of that is in financial freedom. But in order to get there, we have to free ourselves up to let ourselves see what the future would look like. A lot of times people feel really stuck where they're at. So having that vision allows for you then to have harmony in your life. It allows for that to be the compass. And again, not balanced because that sets you up to think that it's always going to feel the same. There are times that my business takes more than my personal life. There are times, like last week, I was so excited that I got to watch my grandson twice while my son went to basketball practice. He coaches middle school basketball. And so because I own my own business, and because I had some flexibility built into my schedule, I was able to go do that and spend time with my grandson. So it allows for that opening up of things and allows for the opening up of receiving. So that's a wrap for today about vision and how that leads into harmony. And next week we'll have a guest on, and the following week you're going to hear a rebroadcast of a podcast that I was on. And in February we'll dig into some more meat. So with that, folks, it's a wrap. Thank you so much for listening in, and we'll see you in a week. That's a wrap for this conversation. I'm so glad you've joined us. Remember to subscribe to the podcast so you can catch all of our future episodes, and visit us at thelituplife.com for details on how you can become part of the Lit Up Life community. A quick shout out to my friend Jackie Wilson and her friends, the creators of our amazing theme music. Thanks so much for allowing us to share this perfect song with our listeners. Looking forward to having you listen in to our next episode.